A huge meteorite has hit the moon, causing it to change its orbit and fly straight to Earth. Is there a chance for salvation? Find out from the recap of the movie Impact. People all over the world gather to watch the largest meteor shower in the last 10,000 years. Children spot glowing tracks of the first meteorites in the sky and get excited. A loving couple from Germany, Roland and Martina, look through a telescope and marvel at the bright flashes. NASA notices that some meteorites measure up to 6 kilometers, and one of them is flying straight at the moon. The people with the telescopes notice this too, so they start to panic. Before long, an impact occurs. Scientists figure out that several pieces of the moon will reach our planet in about an hour. Soon, they indeed reach the Earth's atmosphere, ignite and fall on numerous cities around the world, causing massive fires. One of the largest fragments falls into the ocean, creating a huge tsunami. A man named Alex puts his children to bed in the basement and watches the news. A new day is dawning. An emergency meeting is held at the White House. The moon has gotten closer to Earth, but it is now steadily moving in a stable orbit. There are seemingly no reasons to panic, and they should calm the people down. Alex goes to work and learns the latest news from his assistant. It turns out that he used to work at NASA and researched gravity. The reporter announces that our planet is perfectly safe. However, Alex is not so sure about it. Meanwhile, a group of young tourists wander through the forest. The guide realizes that his compass is not functioning. The children find a crater in the forest, which has appeared after the fall of the massive meteorite. We learn that various natural disasters, such as floods, occur all over the Earth. The tide patterns have changed. If this tendency continues, half of the planet will be flooded. Alex is going to a baseball game with the kids. They notice a flock of wild geese flying south to warmer climates, which is rather strange since it's springtime. During the baseball game, we see that the moon is too close to the Earth. Suddenly, lightning bolts strike the surrounding objects as if they were under voltage. Roland studies one of the meteorite fragments in his lab and realizes that this is a piece of the moon. He hurries to meet Martina, and the girlfriend reveals that she is pregnant. Breaking news: an hour ago, more than 20 gas stations exploded in different cities. Before the explosion, people at the gas station felt electric charges in the air. Their hair stood up, and their cell phones stopped working. The White House can't explain these strange events. Meanwhile, Roland comes to see the huge crater. He descends right into it and tries to pick up a small piece of meteorite from the ground. But he can't even move it. The guide takes a hammer out of his backpack to help him, and it suddenly flies straight towards the meteorite, as if it was an incredibly powerful magnet. Maddie visits Alex. Turns out they used to work together at NASA. The protagonists discover that the collision with the meteorite has changed the mass of the moon, the shape of its orbit, and the strength of its magnetic field. Maddie gets a call from Roland. He finds out that it wasn't a meteorite that hit the moon, but a brown dwarf. This is a dead star that burned up and shrunk to a small size, which means that the moon took a much more powerful hit than expected. New cracks keep appearing all over our satellite, and what's more, it still carries the largest fragment of the brown dwarf, weighing 12 sextillion tons. That's twice the mass of the Earth. Now, the moon is not only heavier than our planet, but also turned into a giant magnet over our heads. This easily explains all the cataclysms. Maddie calls her colleague Jarrett and discovers that the moon's axis has shifted, and it is gradually moving towards the Earth. The woman heads to the White House for an urgent meeting with the President of the United States. The head of the country demands her to create a team of the best scientists and solve the problem. Maddie invites Alex to join it. The man packs his belongings and asks his father to look after his children. All the protagonists gather in a huge observatory and hold a conference to discuss the plan to save the world. Scientists examine a map of electromagnetic anomalies and show how the mass, speed, and the orbit of the moon are changing. Another electromagnetic wave with very bad consequences is about to happen. Alex asks his employers to bring his family to the observatory. He calls his father and informs him that a helicopter will soon pick them up. Maddie's ex-husband David asks her for an interview, but the woman refuses as she is in a hurry to meet Alex. They are drinking wine and chatting about science, but suddenly the lights start flashing. An electromagnetic discharge has appeared in the air. It's another wave. In some cities, people start rising into the air. Looks like something strange is happening to gravity. People, animals and objects are floating above the ground. Alex explains that the moon has become heavier than Earth, which means that various objects will be attracted to it. In other words, potentially all objects may fly away from our planet to the moon. Alex calls home, but the connection is lost. People are asked to turn off all their electric appliances, secure all large objects, and not leave their homes. The best place to hide is the basement. Martina takes the train to Berlin to visit her mother. She gets a call from Roland, and he asks her fiancé to get off the train at the next station and hide in a shelter. So, the moon is moving in its orbit, approaching the Earth. A strong wind rises, and all communication is lost. A little boy looking for his dog flies into the air along with his father. Martina and the other passengers start floating inside the train as well. The train takes off over the tracks and then hits the ground. Some of the satellites shut down. Alex is informed that the helicopter that flew to pick up his family has crashed. Fortunately, his children went on board. Roland contacts the observatory and sends a simulation showing the changes in the moon's orbit. A collision with Earth is imminent. The connection is cut again. Maddie goes to the White House one more time. She informs the president that the moon will collide with Earth in 39 days. As a result of this impact, our planet will disappear. The people at the train station are recovering from the accident. Martina is a doctor, and so she helps the other passengers. Alas, some of them can't be saved. 1/5 of the United States remains without electricity and communication. However, the situation in Europe is much worse. Even huge ships are rising into the sky. Since the helicopter hasn't arrived, the grandfather decides to take the kids to Alex personally. Unfortunately, their car also takes off the road. In a moment, the same happens to all the other cars in the city. After a while, everything that went up falls back to the ground. The horrifying scenes are shown on the news. The president delivers an emergency address to the nation and announces the imposition of a curfew. Airports and train stations are closed. Alex's kids come back to their senses. Fortunately, they and their grandfather are alive. The family continues their journey on foot. Maddie suggests using nuclear missiles to push the moon further away from Earth. The idea sounds crazy to everyone. The woman meets with David and admits that the situation is critical. The man immediately attends a TV show and declares to the whole world that our planet will be destroyed soon. Maddie and her colleagues ask the president to authorize the use of nuclear warheads. The scientists suggest using rockets to change the moon's trajectory. But the servicemen are determined to destroy it completely. The president agrees with the military men. Riots break out in the streets. The president makes an urgent address and announces that today the first nuclear missile will fly to the moon to destroy it. Alex's family reaches a small roadside cafe. The owner kicks the kids out, but Grandpa solves the problem with a stick. Alas, in doing so, the old man has a heart attack. The owner of the cafe comes to his senses, but allows the grandfather with the children to stay inside, and even gives them something to eat. Unfortunately, the old man dies. In the meantime, the nuclear missiles are launched. They hit right on target. However, instead of destroying our satellite, they just sped it up. As a result, the collision will occur 5 days earlier. The military's plan has failed. Scientists offer their own solution to the problem. The core of the moon should be magnetized with a special device, and then it will push out the piece of the brown dwarf, which will fly away from the Earth and start orbiting the Sun. Yet there's a rather serious problem. To execute this plan, someone has to fly to the moon, and most likely the astronauts will never come back. There's no other way out, and the president agrees. Alex and Roland are ordered to go to the moon with the other astronauts. They know it's a one-way ticket, but they have no right to refuse. Alex asks Maddie to find his children and convey his words to them, after which he flies to Europe with Roland. Martina finds herself in a small field camp with the survivors. She sees her fiancé on TV and realizes that he is preparing to fly to the moon. The woman asks the soldiers to take her to the astronaut base. Thanks to some rich man, she manages to buy a place in the truck that will bring her to her beloved Roland. Martina learns that he may not come back and cries bitterly. The next day, they get married. Alex, Roland, and other astronauts wearing spacesuits get into the shuttle. The spacecraft takes off, and the protagonists head towards the moon. The cafe owner repairs his car and drives away, leaving the children alone. Soon he feels guilty and returns for them. The man brings the kids to Washington, D.C., and they make contact with their dad. Finally, the shuttle descends to the moon. The astronauts move very slowly because of the strong gravity. They assemble a special electromagnetic device that is supposed to turn our satellite into an extremely strong magnet. The astronauts have only 5 hours to finish the job before a huge nuclear missile is launched at the moon. Unfortunately, they can't make it in time, and the chances of saving the planet are gradually dwindling. People spend their last hours on Earth with their loved ones. The astronauts heroically continue the assembly of the required device. It's finally starting to work. Now, Roland and other astronauts need to scan the surface of the moon to figure out the exact place to hit with the rocket. Their small shuttle crashes and they fall into a lunar crater. Communication with them is lost. Roland manages to stay on a small cliff, but the other astronaut plummets down. The man bravely transmits his coordinates so that the rocket will fly to that exact spot. The missile is launched. Roland is mentally preparing himself for death and asks Alex to leave without him. The man refuses, but another astronaut presses the launch button. Martina witnesses the last moments of her husband's life. The rocket approaches, an explosion occurs. People gaze into the sky to check out the results. The moon cracks and moves further away from the Earth. The plan is a success. Alex contacts the observatory. He and the other astronauts have managed to survive. The president is informed of the successful mission. The Earth is saved. Alex returns to his children and hugs Maddie. He sees 2 huge pieces of the moon in the sky.